Hi, my name is Kim, and this is my first vlog where I'll be walking my process with OCD. So I guess I'll just start with a little bit about my history with the disorder. Um, I've had it my whole life, and I can't remember where it started, and I can't remember any event or any kind of trauma or anything that would have triggered it. Um, if anything did happen in my life, I certainly have no recollection of it. Uh, so the disorder goes back as long as I can remember. Um, I wasn't aware that I had anything or was abnormal, um, or had a disorder until there was two occasions. One is when um, I had picked at the skin on my face, like, like regular teenagers will pop their zits or whatever, but I had my face was just entirely red and swollen and full of little red marks and really bad. And I walked into my bedroom and I was having a sleepover with my best friend, and she was just looked at my face and made a comment, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but I felt really embarrassed and ashamed. And I think I must have been about 14 or 15, and I looked it up because I thought that was the first time I thought, okay, this isn't normal, because I had somebody, another human being, that reflected back to me an impression, and because I acted in shame and embarrassment, I reacted in shame and embarrassment. I knew that, okay, this is not something right or good. This is something I'm ashamed and embarrassed about. What is this? What is this? Why do I do this to myself? So I looked it up and I saw that there were other people who did the same thing. And so I told that same friend, I think I have this disorder. And she was just like, no, you don't, laughing at me. And I felt even more silly and embarrassed. And I just didn't think about it again until I was about 19, maybe, in college. I was in a psychology class, and the psychology teacher described obsessive compulsive disorder. At this point, I was only aware of my skin picking, which I also have discovered is called dermatillomania. There's also trichotillomania, which is hair pulling. Um, I think those are the only two that I'm aware of. And so my teacher described OCD, and I was just like, okay, that's me. That's I definitely have that disorder. And it was very shocking to me. And I felt very exposed, even though obviously nobody can know what I'm thinking. But when I was sitting there in class, I felt like I had been exposed, because here we are talking about crazy people in the abnormal psych section of the course, and there's my teacher describing exactly what I do to myself, and it was called obsessive compulsive disorder, and so it entered into my awareness again. I think it's funny that we don't even really know, we're so unaware of even ourselves. I didn't realize that I had a disorder, and it was actually a huge issue in my life. But because I'm only, I don't know, living in this little tiny bubble of awareness, it's like I didn't even know that this was limiting me and such a huge detriment towards my personality, my experience of myself in the world. friendships. I mean, it got in the way of everything. Relationships, my ability to function in life. So that's how I slowly became aware of it. After I actually dropped out of school and I failed like every class and was just miserable and anxious and acting normal, but inside was just not a pleasant experience. And picking my skin gave me this release that nothing else could do for me. Um, it's hard to describe because I've explained it to a few people and I just can tell by the look on their face that they have no idea what I'm talking about when I say picking at my skin feels good and is a release and an escape. Yet it exists and it is a disorder, and that's what it does. You get locked into, inspecting your skin like under a microscope, and it just, when I look at it, it looks like disgusting and diseased, and like I need to do something about that to clean it up and fix it. But what ends up happening is that, I walk out of the bathroom looking like I looked the day my friend saw me. And it's absolutely irrational. And so I'm going to walk this process of peeling back the layers to find out how exactly I created this in my life. So it's going to be interesting. Just to continue with my history with the disorder, once I dropped out of school and I got into the social life that most people that age do, with drinking and everything, and I got married at a young age, at 22 or 23, and I remember mentioning it to my husband, well, when he was just my boyfriend, one time, because he said, "Do you have fleas or bed bugs or something?" Because I had like red dots all over my arm, and I told him, "No, I have a problem where I pick at my skin," and he just, like, it was like, did not compute. So I dropped it because it was not easy for me to talk about. And eventually we moved, and I moved to a different city, and I didn't know anybody there, and I spent a lot of time alone. And we were having a hard time financially, and this was just like too overwhelming for me and extremely stressful, and it got really bad. And I had to tell him because it's like I was constantly hiding myself. I mean, here I am, a newlywed, and like I always want all the lights off and my clothes on, and I don't want anybody to see my skin. And it was making me, because I would feel terrible for the fact that I had done that to myself, and then I would feel like absolutely miserable about the fact that I had to hide it. And not only did I have to hide it, but I had to make up an entire persona as to why I'm hiding it, and it was so dishonest and just like a cage that I was in, where I couldn't step out of character, or I would always fear that I would be put in a position where I would have to I would be revealed or like caught. So I always felt like I was sneaking around, because it's like I had this behavior that had no logical reason that I would have to explain and get by, and I became really good at just lying, basically flat out lying about why I was acting the way I was acting, and it was miserable. Um, so eventually I um, was so trapped by it that I had to talk to him about it. And although it was a bit of a relief and a release in some way, it really didn't change anything. It's 8 years later now, and I still talk to him about it. And I don't really talk to many people about it because, I mean, it's funny because it's like people don't know how to react, or it's just weird. We're not used to talking about this kind of stuff in our society. It's shameful and it's embarrassing. But I'm not really ashamed or embarrassed anymore because I see it objectively now. It's like, that's not who I am. This disorder. This is a disorder that I've created in my life, and I'm going to do something about it now. I'm going to peel back the layers until I figure out where it started and how I created it. Because somewhere along the path in my life, when I was probably very young, I got some release from picking a scab or whatever and built on that feeling and decided to continue and continue until it became an absolute beast in my life that I had no control over. And that is terrifying because it's my own body, and I accepted and allowed myself to be compromised into the position of the disorder having the control in my self-relationship. And it's like, if I can't even control my physical body, that is the one thing that I have control, that I can control in this entire world. That is the one thing that I can take 100% responsibility for, yet that's beyond me, because I have allowed and accepted this disorder to grow and manifest and have not taken responsibility for it. So, I have started blogging about this already. I will be vlogging regularly. I am going to get into more specifics and just talk about current experience and past memories and stuff and take them apart in order to reveal every single inch of this disorder. And I will not stop until I do. Alright, so I'll end it here because that's a pretty long video. So thanks for watching, and if you could leave comments, that would be great. Specifically, I wanted to ask if anybody who suffers from the condition or knows anybody who suffers from the condition remembers starting point, because I don't. So share your experience, and yeah, I'll see you in the Facebook group, and my blog link is below. Thank you.